you're here. So today we are going to be doing we're continuing off from where we were last week. Last week we did part 2 of chapter 1. Today I'm going to read part 3 of chapter 1. I know it's a meaty chapter. And then it takes about 10 minutes for the reading, and then we have a little bit of discussion afterwards. If you're watching the replay, please know that your comments and everything, I still come back and read them. And if you ever want to send me a private message based on what comes out of this, if you'd like to add to the discussion afterwards, then I take private messages as well too. Like if you want to just kind of be anonymous. So last week we left off where it was Mother's Day and celebrated by putting in a fence in our half-acre lot with for our brand new to us Whiskey, our dog. So and I mentioned how I could write a book alone on dog adventures, and yeah, I totally could now with Tula, the Great Pyrenees as well, but that's getting off topic. But I had my hall pass, so I had been looking for something to get me out of the guilt of spending time just for me. And because I felt guilty, there's a billion things that I should be doing instead. And so I had now Whiskey the dog, which I could walk every single day. At the same time, my mom and dad were getting ready to move to Salmon Arm to spend retirement closer to us. They were quite literally packing up their entire lives to come live near us when my dad had a stroke. The week after the stroke was the hardest. I was terrified of losing my dad so early, and I was scared that now they are all going to see my weight gain. I hadn't been home in a few years. I packed up my bag and drove to Prince George to see my dad and my family. I saw my dad lying there, unable to move or talk. We were bracing for the worst. This can't be happening. He's only 64. He just retired. Why is this happening? 2 days later, he was better, and by day 7, we were expecting at least a 50% recovery. I was so excited to bring him his first coffee when he was finally approved to consume thickened liquids. Standing at the coffee hospital bar, one morning I was stirring my dad's thickener into his coffee. I had tears of joy, and I said out loud, I can't believe how happy I am to be thickening my dad's coffee. I didn't start smoking again. The cravings were intense, but there it was. There was the fear that I had of having a stroke in myself, and there it was happening to my dad way too early. Him and we had been celebratory smokers. When I was 15, I had snuck him cigarettes when he was supposed to be quitting. We had both said we are not quitting. We enjoyed it too much. We will die with a smoke hanging out of our mouths. He had been forced to quit this time. Last time he quit, he was a non-smoker for 11 years before I was born. And he started again with a weak moment in a bar. I knew from his story that I could never let that happen. There's just one drag between me as a non-smoker becoming a smoker again. I made it through. Nobody pointed at me, and I didn't care at that point. I was numb. I began reevaluating how shallow I must be to be so obsessive over this weight thing. Talking to the same family doctor we had our whole life, I proudly told him I did it. I finally quit smoking, but I gained a little weight back. And he replied, well, you're much healthier for it. I'm sure doctors go through some level of grief when they've been involved with the same family for lifetimes. The doctor who wouldn't write me notes to skip gym, delivered my son, was now preparing us for my dad's last days. At that moment, it was a good news story, though, all around. My dad was better. Life was going to be different, but my dad was better. I had faced my fear of being judged and shamed. Shallow, I know. But it was a victory for me. I went back home, and we were all waiting. Because my parents were in transition when the stroke happened, my dad had to start his recovery plan in Prince George. We had to work very hard to get a transfer to a closer hospital. My parents, they had no fixed address. My mom was staying at her neighbor's house and watched as the new people moved into the home she was leaving behind. My brother was there doing everything he could do for support. And even he decided to move closer to us as well. Our annual 2-week family vacation camping vacation was just a few days away. And I was torn. Do I stay or do I go? Just go, Mom said. We are in limbo. You'll need your vacation because when you get back, life will be busier. By then, we should have some information about the transfer to recovery residences. It was not like any other day when we left. I could say it was, but it wasn't. For starters, we were 100 miles, not kilometers, miles away from home, in a place that had no cell service, police service, and the only method of communication we had in an emergency was a plea to use the radio telephone at the local pub down the beach. There were 2 ways to get there. You could travel by boat or you could travel by gravel forestry road for about 2 hours until you reached the small community at the very end of the road. Definitely unplugged. The trip was bumpy and long, I'll admit. It was kind of creepy to know that we were heading to what felt like the edge of nowhere to find people in a provincial campground. We were in our 1984 Chevy truck, packed to the brim with a week's worth of food. Barry, our 2 kids, Jake and Cass, both 11 at the time, and our brand new to us, like I said before, dog named Whiskey. The beach was white sand, and if you had a tent, which we did, you were given the treat of selecting a beachfront site. Far away from any RVs that may have risked an axle on the road there to set up shop in the only place they were allotted, the parking lot. You may envision something perfect as you imagine us bumbling down the gravel road with giggling children, the aroma of dog breath, and the knowledge that we had 2 glorious weeks together to explore, relax, and bond away from it all. It was very much that way. However, there was a strong overcast over life as I knew it. As much as I was trying to relax and enjoy, I was feeling a bit ashamed about not making time to call my dad the night before to say goodbye before we left. You know how it is. I was packing and preparing. Time whips away so fast, and then exhaustion sets in. I didn't feel like having the struggle to think of what to say. So, instead of powering through, I thought he'd understand. I was busy and forgive me about not making the call. I'd be seeing him soon anyway. I clung to the conversation my mom and I had earlier that week. Karen, you have to take this vacation, she said. Nothing's happening here. We will be here when you get home, and you need to recharge. Because when, turn the page, we get there, you and your brother will need to have the energy to help us. We arrived in time to get a prime location, set up camp, and begin to unwind. We spent our first night camping as a family. The next day, after a full day of hiking and swimming, Barry, Jake, Cassidy, our dog Whiskey, and I went for an evening stroll along the beach. In the corner of my eye, I see this police officer approaching us. Someone must be in trouble, I thought. He stops right in front of me and says, "Are you Karen Abel?" I notice his eyes are red, and I just feel this rush of defense. "Yes," I said. "I'm so sorry. Your father, Gordon? He passed this morning." I reached into my pocket and I remembered I quit smoking last year. My dad's dream was to see the success of his children, and I'm not done making you proud, Dad. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had no choice but to get my butt in gear with a new awareness that time is a gift that I could no longer take for granted. Time to evaluate my life. There is more to life than just a number on the scale. I knew I needed to do something more. I wasn't sure what it was yet. I did know the pain and the guilt of not calling my dad one last time. It was way more painful than anything that I knew. My dad always told me I was made to help people, that I could do anything I want if I put my mind to it. The able frame combined with my Aries sign was like a rock. What can I do to make my dad proud? What can I do to continue to make my dad proud and honor what I feel called to do? I didn't want to help women with weight loss because I felt like I had a harder time with my identity when I did lose weight. I felt like there was a darker side to my weight loss story that nobody saw and nobody would understand. I wanted to help women see the possibilities in a healthier lifestyle, to love their bodies and have confidence in themselves at any size, to feel just as excited about their energy 20 pounds up or 20 pounds down. But who am I kidding? I can't even hold space for that myself. How can I say I can hold it for others? This new realization and redirection of self-image I held for myself did not mean things were smooth sailing. It meant I could create something for myself to bounce back to so that I could help others. I had to work on my Be Weightless blueprint before helping others with theirs. It looks inwards, not outwards. This is not a weight loss book. If you have weight to lose and you implement what I share with you, then that will likely be a side effect. There are millions of wellness programs out there that you may refer to as being your favorite. Well, me too. But do they give us the full picture? Are they fueling your confidence? Are they contributing to everlasting self-awareness and vitality? It's time to talk about it. So this next moment is a great time for the journaling assignment to write down, and you can write about this tomorrow or the next day at some point. Just go deep and think back to a time in your life where you felt your healthiest inside and out. And I want you to write the details in your entire experience in details, and go into the fact of what you were doing, and be honest with yourself, because there's lots of times where I can go back in my life and I was like, man, I looked my best, but the things that I was doing to contribute to looking my best were draining me and not giving me the energy that I needed to feel confident in my skin. I always worried that I wasn't doing enough, meticulously doing things. So make sure you detail those words about healthiest inside and out, where you had your mindset, you felt really great energy, you felt this beautiful flow. That's the time where there's wellness, a time when you feel your healthiest inside and out. So that's your journaling assignment. And then I want you to take it to the next step and think about what are some things you can start doing this week to bring you closer to how you want to feel. Not how you want to look, but how you want to feel. Because like I've always said before, if you do the things that take care of your mental wellness inside and out, the rest of your body looks after itself. You know, you get to be your healthiest self. And it does take mindset. It takes movement. That creates momentum. So thank you for joining me for this week's live reading of Chapter 3, Part 3, or Chapter 1, Part 1. And next week, we are going to finish up Chapter 1 with what is a good wellness program and how do you know if you are on one. Thanks so much for spending this kind of coffee break with me, and I'll see you again next week. Oh, be sure if you do want to send me a message on if anything resonated in this with you, please, if you want to send it privately, leave your comments below. I do come back and read them and interact with you after, the live, because we can't be here live, which is why I save it and make sure that it's part of the playlist. If you've missed some of the chapters, you can go back and start to at Chapter 1. It's right there waiting for you. All right, take care.